Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
First episode, I think it happens in the second or something. I'm not really sure. I've just seen the clip.
Right.
But I don't know. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started here.
Okay.
Alright. Hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Part 2, and joining me today is Sam. You got some kind of weird numbers in your thing, and I'm trying to remember.
Don't worry about the number. I make sure to keep that number out. I just call myself Sam. But if you need a second word, you can just call it Sam's channel.
Sam from Sam's channel. See, it's very interesting. I'm wondering if he has any green eggs and ham he'd like to share with us today. No, but anyway, so Sam was recently in the contest Who Reviews the Reviewers, and we're trying to get everybody on. Sam unfortunately had to drop out, which...
Yes, I'm apparently the first contestant ever to quit.
Yep. I mean, everyone... This season cracked me up. Everyone kept complaining about how long it lasts. I'm like, but guys, you could have watched the other seasons and
Yeah.
realized how long they were going.
Yeah. Well, because I remember I knew it was gonna... I think after the first round, where that whole thing went on for about a month, I thought, this is gonna go on for a while. But yeah, I was not prepared for just how exhausting the exams were gonna be, and so it was that and the YouTube channel, and I was trying to find a job, and it just got so overwhelming. The one thing that I was able to say, okay, you know what, I just can't do that. I had to set something aside, and unfortunately it had to be Who Reviews the Reviewers, which I didn't want to be the case, because I was enjoying it for the most part. Although I gotta say, the final round video just I was very I felt very bad about that one, because we were both rushed, and I was very unhappy with the final video, because I remember the thing was due in on I think I actually went past the deadline. I think it was due in on the Saturday, and I was trying to get it finished on the Sunday. And yeah, from the sounds of it, like the entire competition is not this bad. If you're not like me and you prepare, then you're in for a good time. And I did have a lot of fun making the videos beforehand. But Rob's a teacher, so obviously he gets preoccupied a lot, and he kept continuously apologizing to me, and God bless the guy for actually getting me the stuff at a time when I was still able to make a reasonably okay video. But yeah, at the end of it, I kind of thought, the way I described it in my goodbye video was, it was basically like a crap piece of homework that, as long as it's due in on the due date, that's the important thing.
Yeah. I enjoyed you guys' last video. It really did remind me of some old how to use tools videos I saw back in middle school.
Yeah.
But anyway, Sam, what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about Superman, mainly Superman 2's both cuts of the film, the theatrical cut and the Richard Donner cut. And mainly because I first saw the Richard Donner cut last week. I'm amazed it took me that long to finally see it. But I had the spare time, and I thought, oh, you know what, could be worth a watch. So yeah. Have you? I take it, obviously you've seen both cuts. What are your views on them?
I honestly do like the Richard Donner cut a lot more.
Yep. I
mainly
agree.
because it doesn't have a lot of the stupid powers. I mean, it's one of the weird things. Everyone complains, or one of the major complaints about Superman is he's too overpowered, he has too many powers. And apparently Lester's version or Lester's idea to fix that problem is to give Superman more powers.
Yeah.
That's something I always found really odd about the Lester Cut. But there's a lot of other things that are just weird or create problems that don't need to be there or just go unexplained. And I mean, to be fair, it does have some advantages over the Donner Cut in certain ways. I mean, it's obviously more complete, but that's not exactly something to give too much credit for. It tends to be a little bit more fun. I think you can definitely go into the original cut without having seen the first Superman movie, whereas it's
I actually think that probably makes it better.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things. I think there's some good to this movie. The humor is pretty good. I do enjoy a lot of the humor in it. I mean, seeing them turn Mount Rushmore into the three of them is really amusing to me, if nothing else.
Yeah.
It's dumb, but it's Silver Age funny.
Yeah.
It's from the comics of the time, I think. It's something I could see. Oh, you got a cell phone by you?
I do. Let me just throw that.
Yeah, sorry about that.
You hear me?
No, I mean, there's some stuff about the Lester Cut that's enjoyable, but I do enjoy the Donner Cut more as a serious film.
Yeah.
The problem with the Donner Cut, and this is not something that I think needed to be a problem, but they kept it so rigid to the original script, as if the first movie wasn't changed from its original script.
Right. With the ending and the Earth getting spun back.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a significant problem because you kind of have to retool the ending or figure out how exactly Superman stopped all the stuff that went down. You know, it's this problem.
Yeah, the thing that kind of not so much upset me, but just kind of like sort of made me slightly disappointed. I knew the end was going to be that he spun the world back round again, because I knew about the whole the studio liked the effect, so they asked him to put it in the first film. But the thing that just kind of I actually kind of prefer the ending from the Lester version. But then I also think there are the film as a whole is better on the Donner version. But I mean, there's so many things that I'd like to. I think most Superman fans do just want to pick little pieces of that movie and either take them apart or put them together and basically create one coherent story. And that even includes the first one. I mean, I kind of feel like there should be a Richard Donner cut of Superman 1.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, all you really have to do is end Superman 1 when he grabs the missile and just cut to that newspaper and assume that Superman's fast enough to grab the other missile.
Yeah.
It's
And, you know, they even in Superman 2, they have a significantly, well, not significantly long, but longer than most flashback or recap at the very beginning that doesn't so much... not so much
Hello?
slowly, but it takes its time to kind of just from up in the first. So, you know, that could have worked too.
Sorry.
And
Sam?
like, it is kind of interesting because it does. Yeah? Still there, man?
You cut out for a second there. Can you repeat?
Don't worry. Where did we leave off? Yeah, I was just saying that because the second one starts by giving a kind of recap of the ending of the first film, that I kind of feel like you could have taken out the spinning the world back, but then I do also feel like the first one would be kind of anticlimactic.
Yeah, well, the first one was originally scripted to be anticlimactic. It was originally, well, not anticlimactic. It was supposed to be, you know, a cliffhanger. You were
good
supposed
point.
to start the first one was supposed to end with him throwing the missile into space and then saying Superman will be back in Superman 2, which is all well and good, but yeah, it's one of those things like the movies. They should have, if they're gonna recut the Donner film, the second movie anyway, they should have figured out a way to make it consistent because Donner was around. And I mean, yeah, the studio messed.
Yeah, he was overseeing the project. He could easily have said, you know, let's go back and change something or two.
Yeah, it's really odd. I think there needs to be a fan edit of Superman 1 and Superman 2, the Donner cut, to make them more consistent together.
I've heard there's a really good fan cut or fan edit that someone has done, and apparently Warner Brothers has seen it and they like it. But they're not gonna. Apparently, they don't want to do another cut of Superman 2 until another big event will happen that makes the other cut seem how you put it. Makes it seem like it's the right time to put it out, like it's another anniversary or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's well and good. Part of what, I mean, this wasn't the only reason they released the Donner cut, but, probably the best thing to come out of Superman Returns is the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2.
Yeah, very true.
I don't know, I mean, how old's Superman now? He's gonna be 80 soon, isn't he?
I think he's 75 this year.
Oh, this year? I thought he would have been... Okay. Yeah, this would be a good time. I don't know, there's another really good fan edit I've seen that takes the third movie and the fourth movie and compiles them into one, getting rid of all the garbage that they can.
Right.
So that's a really good one. If anyone gets the chance, check out Superman Redeemed is the advice.
Superman Redeemed, that's a great title.
It really is, because it really does redeem those two movies. I mean, they had some good stuff there. It's mostly the fourth movie. Let me put it that way. It's mostly the fourth movie. They cut out all of the crazy billionaire in the second movie. In the third movie. Richard Pryor isn't in the movie. It's really good. Good. Alone. And don't get me wrong, I like Richard Pryor, but God, that was a terrible idea.
Yeah, the actor's good, but I think part of the reason he wasn't very funny in the third one is because most of his stuff was scripted.
Yeah, Richard Pryor.
And he's much better at improvisation.
Yeah, Richard Pryor's hilarious. Seriously, God, I wish they'd given him a good role in a Superman movie. That would have been awesome.
But he said he wanted to do a serious role, so it would have been nice to see if he could have done a serious performance.
That is odd. Oh well. Anyway, let's get back to the Donner and the Lester cut here. So right. You really don't like the Lester cut, it sounds like, in comparison to the Donner. Well,
actually, no. I kind of I do actually really like both cuts of the film. That includes the Lester version. I actually love the ending. There's one or two things I would say about the ending. For instance, the thing is, it ends on a very kind of sad note, but that's part of why I like it so much. And I think one thing that the Lester cut has, it has a significantly better ending in that we have a really great scene between Clark and Lois, where she's crying and she says, "How can I ever get over you?" and all that kind of stuff. And the magic kiss is completely comes out of nowhere, and it's it's a cheap excuse.
We're having tech issues, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry about that. I'll wait till Sam comes back on. But anyway, how's everybody doing? Anyone having fun watching this tech glitchy video?
Can you still hear me, man?
Yeah, I can now.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was just saying the I think one of the things that the Lester cut has, I just think one of the reasons the Lester cut for me has a better ending than the Richard Donner cut is that it has that scene between Lois and Clark, where she's crying and she's saying, "How can I ever get over you?" And yeah, the magic kiss is it completely comes out of nowhere, and the writers do pull it out of their asses, but I think the emotional context of that scene is terrific. And to be honest, I was kind of sad to find out that that's not shot, that wasn't shot by Richard Donner, because I felt it was kind of missing from the Donner cut.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things. There is a lot about the Donner cut that's problematic, and the biggest thing the thing that ruins it the most is a lot of it doesn't need to be. He just would not use any of Lester's footage that he didn't absolutely have to, to the
Yeah.
point of we get that really weird, like we get that ending that, you know, spinning the Earth back again. And I mean, I will say this: spinning the Earth back makes a lot, or well, not spinning the Earth. He's actually time traveling, but anyway, it makes a lot more sense at the end of the second movie if you take it into context with the first not having it. It makes a lot more sense that he does it at that point because it's incredibly less selfish.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things. It's really awkward that he does it in the first movie just because of Lois. I mean, he's fixed all the other problems, and by doing it, it makes no sense as to how it doesn't re-problemize or make everything else a problem again.
Well, that's the thing. Like, that another example of how the first film was affected by changing directors, because the whole part, and I had a problem with this. I even mentioned this in my review. The whole part of him, you know, changing time is, you know, Jor-El comes to say, you know, you can't play God. That's exactly what you cannot do, and that's like a recurring theme in the two films. And in the end of Superman 1, it was supposed to be that he threw the missile into space, and that's what destroyed the Phantom Zone, and let Zod and the other two Kryptonians free. So that was kind of like that made sense, and it was kind of he's paying the price for his selfish
actions have consequences. Sam, I think you jump into conclusions here. No, I do agree with you. It's one of those things, like, by changing it for the sake of the effect, it really does cause major problems in the stories of both movies. Yeah. And it ruins his arc to a certain extent, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, that was set up at the beginning when Jonathan Kent dies and he says the line, "All those powers and I couldn't save him." Dealing with death is a part of life, and even the most powerful of us cannot stop it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd agree with you. It does kind of work that way. So let me ask you this then. Do you think that in this mythical Donner epic, let's call it that, with Superman 1 and 2 being one giant movie, right?
Right.
And there's some kind of consistent plot here. Do you think it would work, or how do you think it would work if they left Lois dead in the Donner epic? If Lois died and that's just part of what happened? Like, when he reverses time, he can't go back to before Lois died, or he has to stop when Lois dies.
That's the thing, because I love her so much, Superman 2, and she's such an integral part of the narrative that I can't see a way in which you could kill her off and we could still get such a great...
He throws the missile at the end of the first half of the movie where Superman ends. He throws the missile into space, and then reverses time again. I don't know.
And then Lois still dies.
Yeah, and then when he reverses time at the end of it, he can't go back to before she dies. Like, he can't go back to that moment because he has to, you know, get rid of the missile in a different way or whatever.
Right. I can't say I've ever really considered it. I think with maybe another character that he would still get incredibly angry over, maybe his mum, but I mean that would be a bit harsh. I mean, he loses both his dad and his mum in one movie. But yeah, I think it would be a ballsy move, but the fact that she is she's the second most important character in Superman lore, that I don't really think you would take her out of it or kill her off. Mm-hmm. It would be interesting to see them try it, though. I'm not gonna lie.
No, I think it would work because we were talking about, like, the theme of, you know, you can't stop death, and that's what he does at the end of the first movie. And I mean,
it would be great to finish off his arc. I guess maybe, like I said, I can imagine it if it was someone like his mum, but I mean, I think if they could have done this kind of story a little later on, when we've, you know, had a few adventures with Lois, to the point where we knew her and we were comfortable, because we really just...
damn it, again.
Just met her when she dies, and that's also part of why I don't really... Still there, man?
Yeah. Sorry, guys, we're having issues with connection here or something. How many bars you got, Sam? Internet-wise?
I've got all of them lit.
Oh, me too. It must be some kind of transatlantic storm. I just wanted to say that. It just sounded cool.
But yeah, I think character arc wise, yeah, it would be great, and it would make sense in the film. But I just don't really think you can kill Lois off, especially
Yeah, I mean, fair point.
especially
That's what
since
I
we
was
just
thinking.
met her.
Yeah, fair point. I was just thinking about that though. Just it would, with what you were saying, with what we were talking about with his character arc and the whole Jonathan Kent thing. It would make a lot of sense if in the first movie he's only able to save Lois because he throws the missiles into space, and that's how she survives all the way through the second. And then at the end of the second movie, when he has to turn the Earth back, he has to stop the missiles again, but he can't throw them into space, which is what leads to her dying.
Right.
It could work. Let's talk about. I don't know how big of an effects guy you are, Sam, but something I definitely noticed, and I was wondering how easy it was for someone that might not be as versed in it to pick up on. Were you able to spot all the major differences in how effects were done in the Donner cut? Like, there are some really glaring inconsistencies between the 1970s effects and the 2006 effects.
There are a few. I think the shot of the missile in space. There. I mean, the backdrop, the space backdrop. I mean, that's not what space looks like. Like there's stars literally every single point on the screen, and it looks a bit like a desktop theme.
Yeah.
And the missile itself is quite obviously CGI. The one thing I don't know if this is a problem in the theatrical cut. It's not so much a problem, but I don't know if it's apparent in the theatrical cut when it explodes and the phantom zone starts cracking and all that kind of stuff. The explosion and the waves that hit the glass look extremely cartoony. Is that a case in the theatrical cut?
I didn't really catch it personally. I wasn't looking so much at the effects in the theatrical cut as I was just for the differences in this one. And it's weird that they let these guys use CG in the 2006 movie because I watched some of the commentary and stuff in the documentary they did behind this in the Donner cut. And one of Donner's points was, I wanted the effects to look like they're from the 70s, not like they're from 2006. Right. Like, yes, that's genius. Only you just didn't do that. It's weird because, I mean, you can totally see, just in that first scene in the movie, essentially, you can see that rocket is obviously CG, that like they've got a 3D environment as opposed to a realistic setup, and it's very problematic.
Reminds me of the special editions of the Star Trek, and even the Star Wars movies, where they add in CGI shots and it looks completely inconsistent with the.
No, actually, in Star Trek it makes perfect, or not Star Trek. Actually, in Star Wars it makes perfect sense because once the Emperor took over, he just decided, no more polished stuff. Everything's gonna die. It's just gonna be all bland. We're gonna make everything look like cardboard.
But yeah, that's the problem is studios don't want to pay so much money for the way it used to be with models and practical effects, and something sad about that.
Yeah, and there are a couple other odd things I noticed, like in that fight scene in Metropolis towards the end. Now I was watching this again just now on my computer, and maybe it's because I'm on a smaller screen than when I was watching it on the bigger one, but there's a scene in the Metropolis fight where the three of them are flying and nod. There's a chroma key error where he's somewhat transparent.
Well, really?
Yeah, like you can. It's something you see a lot in different movies where the chroma key, especially in early chroma keying, parts of legs disappear. It mostly happens on the extremities, but like you either have disappearing or like chunks out of the person, or there's a slight bit of transparency because the lighting was kind of bleeding over into them, or because of where their body was on the camera. But yeah, Nod's completely transparent in the Donner cut, or not completely. Nod's somewhat transparent in the Donner cut, but in the theatrical, he's like perfectly fine from what I could tell. It's a weird inconsistency.
Right.
I don't really know what caused that. I just thought it was odd.
It was Zod.
I see what he did there.
I'll be here all week.
No, you won't. No, you really won't. You're not going to be on my channel every day of the week. That'd be ridiculous.
Yeah, who are we kidding?
I don't like you that much, Sam.
Oh.
One, you got a classier accent than me, so you just gotta go. Two.
But yeah, like I guess I noticed a couple things with the special effects, but they didn't really bother me too much.
It wasn't that they were like overwhelmingly bad. It's just it was odd inconsistencies, and I'm not really sure why it was such a big deal. Because honestly, once you start building CG sets and stuff like that, unless you're getting it done really fast, it's going to be more expensive to do that than to hire the animators than it would be to just go get a CG rocket and a trash bag, some pins, stuff like that. I don't know. It's weird because even if they were using CG, this is 2006. They knew what texturing on CG was back then.
Well, the CG in Superman 2 in Superman Returns looked great. So
yeah. So I don't know what the problem is, because honestly, in 06, they should have been able to texture the rocket. I mean, I couldn't tell so much with the space as much as I could with just looking at the rocket, that it was just straight shaded. I don't know why they couldn't texture it to make it look more like the thing that Christopher Reeve throws,
Right.
That's like the most apparent one, I guess, but it still bugs me.
No, I completely get it. Like, there are special effects shots in movies where they've touched them up. I just kind of think, can't we just leave it alone? Like, sometimes they're not that intrusive. But yeah, I've got such a history of just hating some of the changes made to the Star Wars special editions, like in Return of the Jedi in Jabba's palace.
Yeah.
And then that singer comes out, and then the guy screams on the camera, and makes me embarrassed to watch the film.
See, it's weird. I wouldn't mind it in Star Wars so much, because I mean, it makes sense that they're like, everyone complained about Hayden Christensen and replacing the Emperor with the 2005 version. That stuff doesn't bother me as much because it's just trying to keep a certain amount of continuity. So I'm not incredibly bothered by that as much as I am just by the fact that it's almost impossible to get a hold of the originals now.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, and I have so many people. Like, I did a video on the special edition changes, and in fact, the Hayden Christensen Ghost was the number one, the one that I disliked the most. But that's mainly because I'm not a prequel fan.
Yeah, neither am I. I mean, I like some of them a little bit.
Yeah.
Revenge of the Sith is good, but otherwise.
Yeah, I can watch Revenge of the Sith, and that's the one. That's really the only one where I feel like they genuinely tried. But yeah, like, it's even to films that I don't like. I don't mind if they get referenced to, or they acknowledge that happened. Like, if they acknowledge in the next X-Men movie that this or that happened in X-Men 3, I'm fine with that. But the prequels just they don't feel like Star Wars to me. They're so different that I just can't stomach the words 6 episodes, because really to me Star Wars is just the trilogy. But I won't. Anyone who likes the prequels, don't get annoyed. I get so many people telling me how wrong I am.
Well, I mean, they're okay. It's part of it's bad acting and George Lucas being too full of himself. I think the problem with the prequels was mostly that George Lucas was such a big name by that point that, let's say you're a lighting guy, you're a DP, and you're working on the set of Star Wars Episode 1, and George Lucas comes up to you and says, "Put a light right there."
Yeah.
And everything you know tells you I should not put a light right there. Are you gonna do it or not?
Yeah, exactly. No,
So,
that's the thing. The prequels, George was surrounded by people who didn't question him.
yeah.
And I'm
like,
not really gonna.
I've said this much before, and it's something that I think needs to be said more often. To the film's credit, I think The Phantom Menace is such a bad movie because of how well structured a movie it is. Everything is completely dependent on everything else. So when those other things are so bad, your good stuff is completely dependent on them happening.
Yeah.
That it ruins the good stuff. So you cannot save that movie with editing.
It's like an evil mastermind, coordinating everything so that when you complain about it, technically you can't complain about it.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things. But let's get off Star Wars and get back to the Donner cuts. And
Superman.
Yeah, I'll use this to transition. I mean, I will say that much. It's this movie doesn't suffer from the major problems that the effects touch-ups that Star Wars has had.
No.
But it's still it's a jarring change scene to scene. I think the best one, where I'm not really sure if it's 70s effects or if it was the 2006 touch-up, is when the mask turns into Jor-El. Because I remember seeing that thing in the opening credits of the first movie. You know what I'm talking about?
The mask. Do you mean that? I've never really got this, because that's also in the first one. Is it that weird kind of mask that looks like those drama masks where it goes through his eye?
It kind of looks like Darkseid. It kind of looks like Darkseid, and the eye Superman goes through the eye, and Jor-El appears. It's right before he gets his powers back.
Right. Oh, yeah. No, I know what you mean. Where the ginormous face comes in, and then suddenly Jor-El is standing there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that did make me kind of wonder, what was the point in the giant face going right towards him?
It's one of those weird things. I think it was supposed to have been Jor-El's face. I don't know. It's weird that it looks like Darkseid, and Darkseid existed in the comics at this time.
Yeah.
Maybe they were just trying to get rid of it from the first movie where they're possibly seeding Darkseid. I don't know. It's just really awkward to see, but from a visual effects standpoint, I mean, I can tell it's a 3D object of some kind, but I don't know if it's a very small camera, or a camera zooming through a actual physical thing, or if it's a CG model. And it's really well done if it's an original effect, and if it's CG, it's well integrated. I'm not really sure how they did it. I'm
really struggling to remember which part you're on about, because I've only seen the cut once.
Well, it's right when Superman gets his powers back, and that giant face that kind of looks like Darkseid comes through, and Superman goes through its eye, basically.
Right.
Digitally, I'm not really sure if it's digital or if it's a camera zooming through an actual object. It's really interesting. I don't know how they did it, and it's something I'm kind of curious about, I guess.
Right.
Anyway, not too much else really stood out to me visually, besides those things I've mentioned. But it's. I guess I'll give the film credit. I mean, yes, there are a handful, but it doesn't look like someone took Superman 2 and just added 2006 levels effects to it.
It doesn't look like a fan edit.
Mm-hmm.
It looks, it looks fairly professional.
Yeah.
Sorry,
ahead.
you. No, I don't have anything to say.
No, nothing. All right, let's move on then. So the ending is kind of the controversial issue, and you and I both said we like the movie more in the Donner version just because it's got a more coherent story. What do you think works more about the story in the Donner version then?
I think one of the things that gets me immediately, I've never liked the Paris scene in the theatrical cut. I've always found it boring and kind of unnecessary, but only unnecessary. Like, it does have a point. The whole he throws the bomb into space and that's what breaks the Phantom Zone. But I've always found that entire sequence, it just went on for too long. And whereas in the Donner cut, Lois jumps right out the building the second we get into it. So there's no, and especially as, we've had this sort of recap, I like that it immediately just jumps into the story. We've done all the setup, now we can start having fun.
Yeah, actually, something that I meant to mention when you were talking about like the recap of the last movie, I think the only other time we've really seen that was in the Incredible Hulk and in Spider-Man 3. Um,
Or
I was
Spider-Man
trying.
2.
Was it in Spider-Man 2?
Well, they did it with Alex Ross's art.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. In Spider-Man 3, I was talking more about how you see all the old scenes in the opening credits.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking more like that though. But yeah, you are right. I don't know. It's weird to. I've never really seen that done in many other movies though. So I mean, it'd be weird if The Dark Knight opened with scenes from Batman Begins.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the kind of thing where I consider that an example of how reboots don't always have to start with the origin. For instance, I like my subscribers hate that I always mention how much I dislike the Amazing Spider-Man, and I'm not going to go off on one. But I genuinely think that film uh, it added just a couple of new things to the point when the second one already sounds like we're just going to jump right into the fun, to the point when you could just have summed up all the stuff that happened in an opening title sequence.
Yeah, I liked The Amazing Spider-Man, but I thought there wasn't enough that made it different from the Raimi movies.
Yeah.
Just visually alone.
Yeah.
It honestly
And
felt like if you cut parts of the first act out, mostly the getting his costume, learning his powers stuff, you really could have fit it into the Raimi trilogy.
yeah.
But with this, yeah, it's interesting that in the Lester version they felt the need to recap the first movie, especially since Superman was a big deal. There weren't that many people that didn't go see it,
Yeah. Well,
So,
yeah, that is actually interesting now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, I just think that the opening to that film, especially as you get once you've done all that recap, the people who've already seen Superman 1, they may be tapping their feet. Luckily, it's not so long that it gets boring. But once that's happened, you don't need to have an extra sequence, reintroduce characters and all that kind of stuff, because the Paris scene does feel kind of like Indiana Jones-esque, like or Star Trek Into Darkness, where they're having an adventure, you've come in halfway through, and I just think that the Donner cut starts where it literally feels like the very next day from the first one, and I just think it's a much more fun opening.
yeah, I'd agree with you. It does kind of, especially with Lois Lane about to kill herself.
Yeah.
I love that she's that determined from the very beginning, and that's like crazy,
Yeah. And that's another great, that's another thing they nailed about her character. Like, she would do that.
I did like that, and I like the whole vandalizing the picture of Superman and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think we're kind of wrapping up really on general thoughts about it. Is there anything specific, like the one thing that like you knew made you love the Donner cut more than the Lester cut?
I think the thing that significantly made me think the film was much better, or start to think the film was much better, is the scene where she finds out that he's Superman. I think, because I've never been a fan of, he trips and his hand kind of gets in the fire. It's such a clumsy way for her to find out, and after she's been so determined, she was willing to kill herself to prove that he is Superman. For her to then basically give up, and he just so happens to trip into the fire, and I guess they try and a lot of people give the excuse, oh, he wants to be Clark Kent so bad that his trip was genuine, but I just think it's a much better scene for Lois and Clark, and I also think it just it's the scene where I feel like she's talking to both Clark and Superman, to the point when I kind of believe that she would fall for Clark as well.
It's interesting that you say that, because when he trips on the rug, it is really a huge inconsistency in how he pretends to be Clark Kent, because earlier in the movie he runs across the street and accidentally destroys a cab.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's like, okay, I guess he really wants to be Clark right there too. It's one of those fan things that doesn't quite hold together once you just point out something else in the movie.
Yeah.
No, but the reason I love that scene where she figures out he's Superman is I honestly think that's the greatest moment of Christopher Reeve's Superman, and it's weird that it was just when he was rehearsing the part,
Yeah.
Just that scene where he looks down as he's been shot, and then just looks up and takes off the glasses and straightens his back and everything.
Yeah.
It's
a fantastic performance. Just how he instantly, his game is up. She knows he's Superman, and all he has to do is change his. When all an actor has to do is change his appearance physically, and not say a word. That's true talent.
Yeah, I do love that scene. It's just fantastic.
And I even like that Lois sort of tricks him. I think it's a great scene for the two of them. She is just so cunning, and she is determined to do this, and she succeeds, and it proves how smart she is, because at first it seems like Lois is way too risky and she must be right, but the fact that she actually shoots him with a blank, you think, she tricked him, and I just think that's really clever. She managed to fool Superman.
Yeah, I did love that too, when he's about to talk down to her, and he's like, you realize if you'd been wrong, Clark Kent would be dead. She's like, with a blank, and he's like, crap. Yeah. Just seeing Superman, the only thing that could have made it better is Superman face-palmed.
Yeah, definitely.
No, but I do really love that scene. It's hands down my favorite Christopher Reeve Superman moment. But one of the other things I wanted to talk about is how much of this movie, or problems with this movie, or things in this movie that they kind of dealt with in Man of Steel. In both cuts, actually.
Right.
Particularly, the major flaw with both versions of the movie is the truck driver scene. Because no matter which version, it's still really messed up that Superman does that. He just beats up a poor truck driver. Sure, the guy's an asshat, but still.
Yeah. That's good. That's a good point. I've never really thought about it to the point when I thought about both scenes. The part where he goes back in and gets back at the truck driver. First off, that scene makes no sense because he's turned back time, so no one should remember him. But also, I just think that scene is awkward. It's cheesy to the point of I just think it's way too cheesy. Especially off.
I think that we needed to see something that guy get his comeuppance somehow or another. I just think that it's really kind of messed up that Superman punches a guy. It's just a normal human, right?
Did he punch him?
Yeah, he punches him right the hell out. Oh, no, well, he throws him on the counter and
Yeah, that's really where I kind of roll my eyes, because he goes, like when he's sliding down the counter, and it's very breaks the laws of physics, and I just think it's a bit too corny for my taste. But emotionally, it is like, yeah, get him back because he's an asshole.
Yeah, I mean, emotionally, you need some kind of comeuppance for the truck driver, and I think that Man of Steel handled it in a much, much better way, because that's the whole point of that scene, is to really show the differences in these portrayals of Superman, but also to kind of like reference that scene in general. And just Superman destroying the guy's truck is hilarious. I remember when I was in the theater watching Man of Steel for the first time, as soon as I saw Superman leave the bar, I was like, that guy's truck is going to get fucked up. And that's what he did. I was like, yay!
Well, it actually reminded me of a scene from Smallville. I think it's in one of the first episodes where where he gets strapped up like a scarecrow, and he's got the kryptonite necklace, and then he gets back at him by stacking the cars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I doubt that was like a reference, but it just kind of made me think, and I kind of thought, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with Superman causing property damage, especially when people are assholes.
Yeah.
I don't remember which book it was in, but I was reading a Superman comic at one point, and the bank had repossessed a neighbor's farm. Or no,
right.
repossessed... They repossessed his tractor because he was behind on payments on his farm.
Right.
Or something like that. And so Superman, and they had to give the bank the tractor back by noon. And so Superman, instead of waiting for the guy to drive it over there at noon, takes the thing into the middle of town at the dead of night and puts it on the roof of the bank.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I thought it was quite brilliant. I like when Superman's just a little bit of a troll.
Yeah.
Just ridiculous things you could do with superpowers that like no one could do anything about. You don't need to hurt somebody if you could just destroy their pride.
Shame about the fact that he then destroys the entire city of Metropolis.
Well, still. We've talked about that on the other episodes, so I don't want to get into it.
Okay.
Well, actually, there's something to think about. How much property damage is in this movie compared to Man of Steel? In the Donner and the Lester cut compared to Man of Steel?
I would say quite a lot. I wouldn't say... I think compared to the Man of Steel, I think Man of Steel is like 9/11 kind of level of destruction, where
that's part of that's the time it was made in. Obviously, but it's one of those interesting things. There's a lot that gets destroyed in Metropolis, and you get the feeling like they probably would have done more if they could have make it look more believable than miniatures. It's one of those interesting things. Is it doesn't look like he is ending, or he's trying to get the fight out of Metropolis to me.
Well, the thing that where I can forgive it in Superman 2 as opposed to Man of Steel is that they go out of their way to explain things about Superman, like Zod says he actually cares for these people, and they pick up the bus and Superman says don't do it, and not because he's scared of them throwing the bus at him, he's scared for the innocent passengers inside. And I would have just liked one moment in Man of Steel where it happened, because really, aside from the ending, which in case anyone hasn't seen that, we won't spoil, but we're supposed to worry about a few people, but before then I was worrying for the entire city, and I would have just liked one little moment where Superman sort of turns around just to check. But
fair
I mean,
enough. I will just raise this point real quick, since we're getting more into this than I thought we were. If you're paying attention to the background during the fight scene in Metropolis, after the whole Phantom Zone thing happens, until they're in the building in which Superman kills Zod, you do not see any people in any of the buildings they're fighting in.
Right.
So there's you gotta remember, they're fighting in the buildings around where the world engine was. So part of that is that that area was probably evacuated. um, it's one of those things, like, people got the hell out.
Yeah, but
So-
there is a point where, like, the fact that I also just had a problem with the fact that I felt the action went on for way too long, because it actually, that sequence made me respect a little more the limitations they had with the early Superman films, because in Superman 2 that fight feels pretty epic, especially for the time it was made.
Oh.
But I'm also glad, it stopped by a particular point. But I like when in Man of Steel, when Zodin says, now we will fight, I kind of thought, what? I thought the fight was over. So that's
I
really
did love the fight scene. I can't knock it. I love the hell out of it. So I mean, I get why people don't like it. I think you're all crazy. I would say I don't judge you, but I'm totally judging you. I want you to feel the judgment right now. But I get why people don't like it, but I do. I've needed, I've been wanting a live action Superman fight where someone's thrown into a building for quite a while. So I quite enjoyed that. I don't care about property damage, people. This is CGI. We can build more in like 10 minutes. I don't know. I'm sure they'll address it in Man of Steel too. But anyway. So we're about at the end of this, and this is. I kind of want to go for a little bit longer if we can.
Oh no, go for it.
Because I like to try to round these out at about a little over an hour if possible.
Of course.
So, all right. Donner's film works better from a story perspective, and it definitely makes a lot more sense with at least the majority of Superman 1. Right until the whole dude flies out of Lex Luthor's lair, that movie is really well in line with the other one.
Flies out of Lex Luthor's lair. I'm trying to remember that.
Well, in the first movie, he flies out of his lair, and then everything kind of spirals out of control as far as
right, yeah.
in the second movie. But it's interesting to see that movie. I kind of wish it'd been done earlier, because maybe then they would have had to use the same methods of film technique. Yeah. I don't know. I honestly think that, Lester's cut, there's enjoyable parts about it, but if we just had Donner and he had to work with what was already there for Superman 1 as it was released, I think it could have been a lot better of a movie if he just stayed on as the director.
I think overall, I kind of, for me, yeah, you're right about those 2 points. I think for me, I just kind of want one definitive cut where they embrace both the great parts of both cuts. I'd like to get the I actually think the kiss is better than the time travel, just simply because we won't ever get a Superman 1 the Donner cut, but again, Superman 1 does connect very nicely to the start of the Donner cut of Superman 2. He throws the missile into space and it breaks the Phantom Zone. And I also I'd love to see the Superman kisses Lois and erases her memory in the Donner cut. And I know people don't like it, but I think emotionally that's such a great scene that...
well, actually, no. See, what's happening is he isn't kissing her, and the kiss is what erases it. He's lobotomizing part of her brain with his laser eyes. Sorry, I just wanted to say that.
There are so many weird things about, like, what he's actually doing, and I really just think that when he's kissing her, like, the filmmakers obviously just thought magic kiss.
Yeah, it's weird. That's something we didn't talk about too much. Why is it you think that they had all the weird superpowers in the original cut?
I reckon it's ultimately because, back then we didn't have a concept of don't go crazy with the source material, because back then people didn't really know what it was. I mean, at the time, people were just happy to be getting a Superman movie. I don't think the filmmakers really thought about being too faithful to the point of, powers. And I think emotionally they got the stuff right. And with the powers, yeah, they're kind of weird. But back then I can forgive it because, superhero movies were a new concept. And, a lot of films have been changed from books, like Total Recall. I don't believe the Mars stuff is in the original book. Yeah, I think the powers are kind of weird, but I can forgive it because the emotions and the character arcs, I think, are all still pretty much there.
Fair enough. I think part of it, why they did it, is just to get as many visual effects into the movie as possible.
Well, the turning back time was obviously one of them.
Yeah. I'm talking about in the original theatrical release. It seems like, the levitation and the multiple Supermans on screen at one time and the transportation effects and stuff like that.
When are there multiple Supermans on screen?
In the fight in the Fortress of Solitude.
Oh yes, he uses. Yeah, that I vaguely remember that. I kind of thought that was something to do with the fortress creating holograms or something.
I don't know. And then also you got like the S shield that he throws onto Nod.
Yeah, that's outright like what the fuck.
And I think I like Family Guy's take on that more than anything else.
Yeah.
That slightly inconvenienced me.
Yeah, I mean that is genuinely weird. And like in that case, it serves nothing.
I honestly think they were just trying to show all the things they could do with special effects, and Warner Brothers was probably pushing for it. And I think I've got to check into this sometime, but I'd be willing to bet that the budget for Superman 2, at the point that they brought the new director on, I bet they increased the budget and told him to put as many different kinds of superpowers, that he could into the movie.
Well, that would make sense. I mean, Zod changing Mount Rushmore wasn't in the Donner cut, and that probably cost them a few kahoojas.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting. I mean, the thing is, that's conceivably possible to do with Superman's powers, but it's still really weird. It's weird that Zod would take the time to do it.
Yeah, like he's that dedicated.
Yeah, it's just like, I've got to sit here and, like, because you'd have to essentially, laser out, burn out all the original sculpture, and then recarve it in the likeness of your face. And that's
like you can just imagine a deleted scene which goes on for 5 hours, of God just floating there, just making his face into Mount Rushmore, and you've got Ursa saying, "Zod, come on, we've got to go get the president." He's like, "Just a minute.
I am working, woman. Can't you see I'm making art?" Kneel before this giant statue of my face. All right. We're gonna play a game real quick before we go. And because I'm all done with things I have to say. Do you have anything serious to say, or are you ready to play? Because this is gonna be hilarious.
I'm ready to play.
All right. Most hilarious and awkward things you can think of for Zod to say. Go.
Superman, hang on a second. There's an itch in my butt.
That's not good. Come on, you gotta try harder. You gotta be like, I am Zod. Excuse me, I must go to the bathroom.
Cool. I'm trying to think of something you could say. Maybe the bit when. No, I've got nothing. What about you? I have a feeling you've got something really good cooked up.
All right. Okay. So when it's in the scene where he's in the Oval Office talking to Lex Luthor.
Right.
He's like, I thought you were supposed to be bald. Damn it! This is why I wish Milan were here. It'd be hilarious. Anyway, I don't know. I've got nothing. I just it seems like that's potential for a great game. Just things for Zod to say that are hilarious. Okay. Well, Sam, thanks for coming on. This was fun. Sorry that.
Yeah, it was. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, sorry that it was just you and me. Bill's working and Milan forgot about us. Um,
Don't worry.
anyway, everybody.
But yeah, like if you guys ever need me again, by all means give me a shout. I'll be happy to come back on.
Yeah, sure thing, dude. You're welcome on anytime.
Cheers, man.
All right, thanks. Everybody, thanks for listening. And until next time, we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.